Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, it's an honor to be here. Thanks to Norad for organizing this interesting conference. And it's also an honor to speak after amazing participants that preceded me on stage. Just a few words about IPPF. As it has been said, we are a global federation providing sexual and reproductive health services. We have clinics in 170 countries. And we not only provide services, but we also advocate for the right of people to make free choices about their sexuality and reproduction anywhere for anyone. We have in Norway our member association, Sex of Politics, who I know they are here, and we're very proud that they are part of our federation. So what is the Global Gag Rule, just to start? Who knows what is the Global Gag Rule? Can you please raise your hands? Okay, not everybody, but many people. We call it Global Gag Rule as advocates because it's really preventing, providing basic health services and people also to access their rights. But it's officially called Protecting Life in Global Health Assistance. And it was issued just 4 days after Trump took power in the US in 2016. But this is not new. We have global gag rules since 1984. The difference of this one is it has been expanded, and has been expanded not only to prevent or regulate the use of US funding in family planning activities, but in all global health activities. That includes HIV, includes water and sanitation, includes vaccines, includes everything you can imagine within the global health package, and prevents non-US foreign organizations to use US funding related to safe abortion services, being counseling, being even in countries where safe abortion is legal, and even prevents organizations to use their own funding. So if USAID realizes that you are using US funding not for abortion services, but for something else, and you are supporting abortion services with your own funding, you shouldn't actually be permitted to use that. So it is. It has been one of the reasons why we see that our space has been shrinking in the sexual and reproductive health area. But as you know, this is not new. Sexual and reproductive health has a history of being controversial. Next year, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the program of action of the ICPD, the International Conference on Population and Development, that was held in Cairo in 1994, and that for the first time made that governments endorse sexual and reproductive rights as human rights. And throughout the history, we have seen opposition. We are now in a moment in which opposition is much more stronger, much more funded, internationally connected, and unfortunately finding backup, not only from the Trump administration, but from other governments that we see that are already taking action against our issues, but will take action. For instance, with the recent elections in Brazil, and Joanne was telling us about environmental risks, there are also risks about sexual and reproductive health and rights in a country like Brazil, which is not only have a huge population, but has been a champion on HIV response, for instance, and other rights. So what does this mean financially? So more or less $8 billion are affected by the Global Gag Rule. This is 14 times more that when the Global Gag Rule was enacted in 1984. And from these 8 billion, 6 billion are from PEPFAR, which is the program of the president to fight against HIV and AIDS. So we should see this not only as a threat for women's rights, but also for gender identity rights, because we know that a great proportion of the funding for HIV goes also to defend LGBTI rights all over the world. So what is the problem with abortion? This is our statement about our mission and vision, and the reason why we didn't sign. We do believe that if we work in sexual and reproductive health and rights, we cannot ignore abortion. On the contrary, we need to make sure that every woman has the right for safe abortion and legal abortion embedded in the healthcare systems. And it's, of course, in line of our principles of defending the rights of people for a free and sexual and reproductive life, and really making sure that everybody is free from reproductive coercion. We think that when women are forbidden to have an abortion, they are coerced reproductively, and that everybody should have full access to contraception information and sexual and reproductive health and rights. The problem with abortion, which is a huge issue, is really varied. On one hand, it's a gender issue. I think patriarchal societies don't like us to be in charge, women. And we title our abortion report specifically addressing medical abortion that we launched here in September, here in Oslo, Her in Charge. Because it's on one hand, if you don't have access to safe abortion, you don't have access to your bodily autonomy, you don't have access to your decisions about your life and your health and your future as a woman. But also it's a public health issue. We know that 25 million abortions are unsafe in the world. This is 48% of all of abortions that occur in the world, which is a figure that should really move us, because 97% of unsafe abortion happen in low and middle income countries. And also unequally affects women with disabilities, women living in rural areas, women living in poverty, and women who are left behind. So we do know that abortion is a public health issue, but it's also a human rights issue and a gender issue. We know that 21 million of young women get pregnant every year, and 65% seek abortion in the world. Some of them have access to it, some others don't. And there are absolutely unacceptable situations in 5 countries in the world which still have total ban on abortion. 4 of those 5 countries are in Latin America, unfortunately, because I'm from Latin America, and that's not a reason to be proud at all. Those countries are Nicaragua, El Salvador, the Dominican Republic, and Honduras. And in El Salvador, you can go to jail for 30 years, even if you have a miscarriage. Just recently, the 12th of November, Imelda Cortez, who is a woman who has been consistently raped by his stepfather, had a child of 2 years, and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison because she was accused to attempt an abortion, although she has a 2-year-old daughter. So that's a situation that many women live, and that's a situation that is exacerbated by this prohibition of using funds from the US to work on self-abortion. The effects of the Global Gag Rule are many, are not only in the area of services. So we, as IPPF, decided not to sign, and that meant that we lost $100 million from the moment in which the rule was enacted to the end of next year. That's the prediction. And we had organizations in several parts of the world which were really heavily affected. Like, for instance, our organization in Botswana losing 70% of their funding, our organization in Mozambique losing 60%, And that, of course, is a number, a percentage, but means that many services that women were used to go to in our clinics are not provided anymore. So that's one really kind of issue which is related to health services and to health outcomes and injustice. But also it weakens the civil society fabric of countries, because you then have organizations who receive US funding, who sign the gag rule, others like us who haven't signed. And there's a difficult relationship on the ground, because the organizations who are working with USAID don't want sometimes to be seen with organizations who didn't sign the gag rule. So you've seen some coalitions being broken, some trust being broken apart from services. And yes, well, this is just a statement about why we will not sign this policy, and we haven't signed. This is Joan, my colleague in Zambia, the executive director of our member association in Zambia, who also had not only an important percentage of her work reduced because of not accessing US funding, but also a very significant and unique one, because part of the programs she was having was with key populations on the HIV. So she was working with sex workers and transgender people, gay men and men who have sex with men, etc., people living with HIV in Zambia, with US funding. And what happened is that because we all decided to sign the rule, to not sign the rule, so she lost all this funding. And so a specific trust really in the people who are being left behind has been broken as a result of that. We also see in Uganda, and this is something that's happening in many countries, we had a number of programs that were delivered by community health workers. And the funding was pulled out, but then there were no other organization at the community level who wanted to work with those community health workers formerly associated with us because of that. So several research efforts and also services have been also interrupted because of the global gag rule. We, as well as seeing, as I said, these issues on the restrictions that the gag rule brings, we have also seen solidarity. So we are, I want to publicly thank also the Norwegian government, because they are one of the few governments who came and said, you know, this is not acceptable, we would like to help, and we managed to fundraise $39 million to allocate and to reinstate some of the services we lost, not all of them. There were also kind of an international solidarity. I don't know if some of you have heard about She Decides, which is a movement that was created by exactly a reaction from other governments saying, this is unacceptable, we need to bring together, we need to put more money, and we need to create this response to that. As well as bad news, as my colleague was saying before from Civicus, there were some good news in terms of solidarity. For me, the reasons that are really affecting our work that are related with the gag rule, as I said, is in terms of civil society fabric. You know, there are issues, for instance, the rule sometimes is very complicated. Some people are sometimes overreacting or taking care of not upsetting the US government, and that has a consequence in the activities they do. We've seen organizations, for instance, just withdrawing leaflets about adolescent pregnancy because of just misunderstanding of what the rule says, or you know, something that we call the chilling effect that I was talking to you about before, which is really not being associated with organizations who haven't signed the rule. There is also the effects on rights, and I do think that it's kind of a silent way of criminalizing abortion, in a way, which is the same way of criminalizing sex work And some years before in the Bush administration, when also US funding was conditional to sign an anti-prostitution oath, which enforced organizations not to legalize sex work, etc. So it is really something that has its effects in many levels, and it's really weakening as a civil society, I would say. On the other hand, we also see reactions, not only from governments, but also we see that there are some progress. For instance, in the abortion law, and you may have seen, well, not abortion law, this is a wonderful photograph of India, and the repeal on the 377 section, that, as you know, is the same section of the Commonwealth, all the Commonwealth countries that criminalized homosexuality, and that was instated in India in 1860, and after many decades of activism, it has been repealed this year, which is a historic gain. So in addition of bad news, we have good news as well. We do have the repeal in Ireland, and now the opening up for so many women to have access to safe abortion. And we also have seen the fight in Argentina, which unfortunately didn't win in the Senate, but we say that we won in the streets. And that movement that has been forged because of these obstacles to exercise rights are something that is a capital, a social capital that is being created, and I'm sure is going to have positive results in the future. So I do think that we need to acknowledge that in addition to the shrinking space of civil society, we do have reactions which are positive, but we need to be hopeful, and we need to keep our energy to fight back, because these rules are not going to achieve that we are silent, and are not going to achieve for people exercising their rights. And we need to believe that when we are in the worst moments, as we are at the moment. And having said that, I would like to leave you with a very short video from the fight in Argentina. And as I said, that I'm sure it's going to be a very, how to say, something, an achievement that's going to come very, very soon. And thank you very much.
¿Se la imaginan en una niña de 10 años? La realidad que nosotros vemos implica entender que los absolutos morales no toman tu mano mientras estás esperando en una sala de espera, rogando que tu violador no te haya dejado embarazada. No existe una igualdad sin una ley que respete la autonomía reproductiva de las mujeres. La autonomía reproductiva no existe sin el aborto legal y seguro. No podemos ser ciudadanas plenas sin este reconocimiento, y si no hay plena ciudadanía, no hay democracia y tampoco hay desarrollo. La marea verde es claramente abrumadora y su voz es clara y contundente. Solo toca escucharla.